Hello, my name is Priscilla. Let's talk about interpersonal relationships, and I want us to look at the book of Philemon or Philemon, chapter 1. It is only one chapter anyway, verses 8 to 16. Philemon 8 to 16. Therefore, although in Christ I could be bold and order you to do that which you ought to do, yet I prefer to appeal to you on the basis of love. It is none other than Paul, an old man and now a prisoner of Jesus Christ, that I appeal to you for my son Onesimus, who became my son while I was in chains. Formerly, he was useless to you, but now he has become useful both to you and to me. I am sending him, who is my very heart, back to you. I would have liked to keep him with me so that he could take your place in helping me while I am in chains for the gospel. But I did not want to do anything without your consent, so that any favor you do would not seem forced, but would be voluntary. Perhaps the reason he was separated from you for a little while was that you might have him back forever, no longer as a slave, but better than a slave, as a dear brother. He is very dear to me, but even dearer to you, both as a fellow man and a brother in the Lord. So, interpersonal relationships. There is a very big lesson that Paul is teaching us here. One, that there are layers in relationships, that we may all be Christians, but there are layers in relationships, and it is good to know them so that you relate to people accordingly. And the second and a very big lesson is about forgiveness as Christians, that we have choices that we make, and those choices have far-reaching effects in as far as our witness for Christ is concerned. So here are three people. The first one is Paul himself. He is in prison. The second one is Philemon or Philemon. He had slaves, or he is a person of means, and he is in the church of Colossae. The third one is Onesimus. Onesimus was a slave to Philemon, then he ran away. But in the course of running away, he meets with Paul and converts to Christianity. And so now Paul has a dear brother, a son in Christ called Onesimus. But he is also a runaway slave to a church leader in a church that Paul himself had started in Colossae. So he has a choice. He could stay with the runaway slave, or he could be an arbitrator, a peacemaker, and reconcile them both, such that when Onesimus goes back, he will not just go back as a runaway slave, but he is going back as a fellow brother to his former boss. And that his former boss, Philemon, will also understand that God has done some work in his runaway slave and has become a believer, and therefore a fellow brother now. But he is also seeking reconciliation with his boss. It also means that being a church leader, he will be emulating forgiveness to the people that he is leading. Now, Philemon, the people he is leading. Paul, being the spiritual father to Philemon, could have chosen to boss him around and tell him, I order you in the name of the Lord to do this. But he says, I would prefer to appeal to you to do the right thing, and it be voluntary, so that you don't feel like I'm forcing you. Also, so that you may understand the magnitude of what you're doing and the effect it is having in the church of Christ, and even in the life of this slave. And so he appeals to Philemon to forgive this guy, to accept him, not just as a slave, but now understand that he also is part of the believers, that he is part of the church of Christ, that now he will not just be his boss, he will also be his spiritual leader. And so it is very important for them to reconcile. One, to show the love of Christ, because we've been told by Christ to forgive each other. But coming back to the relationships, how will that play out? And let us now look at ourselves. That we have layers in relationships. A person will be your pastor at church, your elder, your deacon, whoever, but they have some authority over you. And then when you go to the marketplace, to your places of work, that person may be your workmate. That person may actually be your junior at the workplace. You may be their boss. So how do you balance the two? You balance by understanding that the two are very distinct when you go to church or when you're dealing spiritual matters. Even in the workplace, always recognize that you're also dealing with a person who has spiritual authority over you. But also the person needs to understand that when it comes to the workplace, they are workers and you have been placed to be their leader, and they have to respect you as their leader. They have to accept your leadership in order to show true Christianity, in order to show that they understand that in the workplace, God has given you a role as their leader, because all these roles are God-given. The problem sometimes comes when we feel entitled, that at work, I wonder why I'm not being treated in a special way. Don't they know I'm their pastor? Don't they know I'm their elder? Hello, this is the workplace. They respect you, respect them. God has given you an opportunity to be an example of what being a diligent, hardworking, and obedient, and a team player worker looks like. When you're at your workplace, be that person, that Christian who does their work diligently. Don't expect to be treated differently, because at the workplace, they need to see results. When you go to the spiritual side, God also wants to see results. In fact, people want to see results. You are their leader, but you don't expect them to see you differently, or don't even feel like you don't qualify because at the workplace you are their junior. No, the two are different, they are distinct. Let us keep our boundaries and let us respect each other. Most of all, let us not get entangled with workplace issues. Don't bring them to the church, but solve them in love, forgive one another. And if you have been given that authority like Paul, don't boss people around. Don't expect them to treat you differently. Offer advice that is beneficial to both sides, that is not favoring one and the other one is feeling like they are being oppressed by you because you are ordering them to do things without consideration of the harm that has been done to you. So bottom line, interpersonal relationships, they cross each other. Create boundaries. Respect one another in their capacities. And then you will have created harmony. Whenever you have an opportunity like Paul to be the arbitrator, to be the peacemaker, to be the reconciler, be that person who is fair to all of them, who first directs them to the love of Christ, that there is a way of solving things that still makes you remain as brothers and sisters in the Lord. Until next time, this is the word for today with Reverend Priscilla.